Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu on Tuesday returned from his 6-day three-nation tour of Africa and described it as an extremely productive visit. The Vice President was accompanied by a high-level delegation for the visit to Botswana, Zimbabwe and Malawi. The delegation included Union Minister of State for Social Justice and Empowerment, Krishan Gurjar, two MPs and senior officers of the Union government. Naidu's official engagements included meeting presidents of the countries, holding bilateral meetings with his counterparts and delegation-level talks, and interacting with business groups and Indian communities. Several MoUs and agreements, including an extradition treaty and pacts on agriculture and training, were signed during the visit. From India, there have been 26 outgoing visits to Africa at the level of President, Vice President and Prime Minister in the last 4 years. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze India's Africa outreach. Joining me on the program today are Anil Trigunayath, former ambassador, Professor Harshvi Pant, Head Strategic Studies Observer Research Foundation, and KV Prasad, Associate Editor of The Tribune. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's first break it down into, three legs of the visit. Let's talk about the first leg first and Botswana. What were the takeaways, really, do you think, from the Botswana leg of the visit?
Well, in the first place, I would like to say that this is one of the most welcome approaches of the current government, because what has been missing all through was the high-level visits from India to Africa. Africa was probably last on the list of any leader visiting after Pandit Nehru. That was the 1962s. And so it's extremely good that, as you mentioned, 26 visits have taken place at the highest level. So this is a great symbol and assurance for the Africans. As you know, the Africans are looking towards India. And all the three countries visit, I would summarize into, it was rich in symbolism and very rich in substantive engagement. Secondly, I could consider it at three ideas, as I would term it as 3Ds. One is defense, diamonds, and digitalization. So if we look at it, these are the three major areas in which we have worked with these three countries. This was more symbolic because these three southern countries, and most of them are quite rich. And Zimbabwe, which is one of the biggest countries, is coming out of the shadow of Robert Mugabe and isolationism. They appreciated what India did for them for all these years. And it is a country which we have to focus very much. Botswana, of course, there was the expo there, which so there is an economic content, which is extremely important. It is a rich country also, very rich in diamonds. Although we don't get diamonds directly from them, we get it through De Beers, have the whole control of the diamond mines there. But at the same time, we are finding ways how we can work together. So therefore, this Africa-India Diamond Institute and some other initiatives in that form. Indian businesses are there, Indian diaspora is there, which is actually very rich and doing very good businesses. So from Botswana, I would like to say, of course, whatever MoUs and agreements are signed are broadly similar in all the three countries, including the visa waivers, which is access. And so I would feel, as far as Botswana is concerned, that this is probably the first visit, high-level visit taking place there. They have been coming here, and this is the biggest complaint of all the leaders from Africa is that from India there is nothing, because every leader wants that there should be some kind of reciprocity, which has been lacking. And fortunately, this government has taken over this very particular thing, especially interaction at the highest level, in the true sense.
Right. Right. KV Prasad, speaking about the economy, of course, both economies doing extremely well, both growing at over 7%, on a year-on-year basis. And also, over the last 1 year, our trade with Botswana has increased 27%. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. As Ambassador Trigunayath also pointed out, economy is a big content. And remember, at a time when India is looking for newer markets, and India also is looking for beyond the traditional areas. And Africa is one area where we have good relations, country to country, and many countries in the continent. We have historical links with them, going back to independent struggles of many a country in the African continent. So that is the thing. And of course, with Botswana, as you mentioned, the economy is doing well, so is the Indian economy is performing well. And one of the sectors that the government obviously is looking for newer revenues is IT. because you see, India has a very large trained pool of IT personnel, and at the time when these markets are shrinking in the West, with the kind of things coming down, you have to look for newer areas, and these are the countries which welcome your contribution. And in any case, India also has this with many countries, specifically the ITech programs, which is bilateral trainings with, we have sort of designated slots with many of these country personnel coming to India. So there is a perpetuity in terms of both training and also kind of engagement, people to people, it increases. So there is a connect which visits like this, and I think they add to the gravitas that the government of India is showing in improving relationship. And post Africa Summit, India Africa Summit 2015, you mentioned figure of 26, and I think also India is looking at expanding its missions to a number going up to 47 by 2022. So that shows India's commitment to a major push towards Africa, and strategically looking at it is important because everybody is concerned about Chinese presence in these areas. So while we are not saying we are countering, we don't have the kind of deep pockets China would have, but it's these people-to-people nourishment that adds flavor to the relationship.
Absolutely. Professor, talking about training, the Indian troops were training the Botswanan troops from 1978 to 2012, of course, then it was stopped in between. Now there's talk of, retraining the troops in Botswana. So defense certainly seems like a big sector that we'll be focusing on.
Yes, I think with Botswana in particular, I think defense cooperation was an area which was highlighted during this visit. And I think the fact that now Indian Army, and I think the talk of also Indian Air Force, both of them trying to deliver training on the ground in Botswana is certainly something that is part of the agenda at the moment. And hopefully will continue to shape the relationship with Southern Africa, where India traditionally has had a very long-standing relationship, but suddenly it petered out in between. And I think the fact that Indian troops and Indian forces, the engagement is growing, the defense diplomacy is growing with a part of the continent which is increasingly very active in terms of economics and trade. And I think to take it in terms of defense shows the level of engagement that India wants to have with that part of the world. And I think half of your diplomacy is about showing the flag, and I think the fact that Indian top level leadership is now engaged so deeply with Africa is a good sign. That perhaps one of the complaints has always been that, look, one visit and then India forgets. So I think the fact that we have this sustained interaction over the last 4.5 years with Africa, with certain countries like Botswana, which perhaps felt left out, and also I think with Zimbabwe was mentioned. So this is a visit that is happening after a long time, 21 years or something. So I think the fact that India is engaging with certain countries where the scope is immense, where you can build on your historical ties, but also looking forward. So here the demand was from Botswana to sort of reshape the defense diplomacy part of this engagement, and India is very happy to sort of build on to that. So I would think that that would take us to a level where perhaps when we are looking at the forward-looking agenda, we are not looking simply at our past, where certainly our history binds us together, but also to the future, where what kind of requirements in terms of capacity building these nations have. And Botswana in particular has requested a range of fields. I think not simply defense, where they want capacity building, but also agriculture, ICT, and other areas, healthcare, where I think India is in a very good position to deliver. So I would hope that this forms the beginning of that phase where we are present in terms of capacity building in much greater force than in the past. And I think it was mentioned China. And I think that can be the differentiating factor. China does not really build capacities in these countries, whereas we have the ability to do that, and we can, and I think we should try to do that.
Right. Ambassador, let's now focus on Zimbabwe. And what were the key takeaways really as far as Zimbabwe is concerned? Because like mentioned by the other panelists as well, we have a past and we have a long history as well.
Well, Zimbabwe, as you know, had recently had the elections and the president has come back, and they are, so far, as I said, that it has been under the shadow of Robert Mugabe for a very, very long time, when it is virtually isolated. Now they are looking to various possibilities, and as was mentioned, of course, the president himself had been trained in China. So he has quite a bit of a Chinese grain in him in that sense. But at the same time, now the whole of Europe, European Union and the Americans and everybody is trying to support this economy so that it comes out. So there are going to be tremendous opportunities. Currently, they are facing very big problems in the health sector. And therefore, now we have decided to give them some 10 ambulances, some life-saving drugs, which they need very immediately because the economy is virtually in a bad shape. Thirdly, they are the ones who have agreed also that we can sell them diamonds directly. Because that is a good thing that has come out of the isolation in a way, because they were not able to sell it to the others. But today, if we are able to get them directly, because India is the largest polisher in the world of the diamonds and exporter. So from our gems and jewelry sector is going to be extremely important. Then Zimbabwe is also one of the few countries where Indians are being given visa on arrival in Africa. So that is another good thing that is going to happen. And I think that the businesses are very keen. Indian businesses are already pretty strong in the country, and we have given a big line of credit for their power stations, for the water pumping station, for creating the Gandhi Convention Center and all. India, Zimbabwe, there is technology center. So upgradation of their skills. Some months back, Indian government had also decided to upgrade its Indian Pan-Africa e-network project to its second level. So all these countries are going to be covered in that. Thirdly, India is also trying to help them come out and get back into the Commonwealth. And that will be one thing in which we have agreed to help them.
Right.
So I think the substantive discussions have been held, and they are trusting India a bit.
Cooperation in international fora also was, stressed on this particular. Mr. Prasad, as far as Zimbabwe is concerned, the first high-level visit in over 2 decades, clearly a country that has been neglected in between. The last time an Indian Prime Minister visited was in 1996. That was the then Prime Minister H.D. Deve Gowda. Do you believe with this visit now the ties will only get stronger?
See, definitely, the level of visit is, as Ambassador Tribunal pointed out, has always been an issue with many of the in India's diplomatic outreach. There may be a sense of neglect in terms of at this level, but otherwise relationship do exist. You have diplomatic community doing its job on a regular basis. There are exchanges, official exchanges, and probably many ministerial level exchanges that happen. But the president, vice president and prime ministerial visits are on a different league. They do bring government's commitment and also at a different stage and different level. That having been said, I think it's very important that, remember, with Zimbabwe we also have we have a sporting ties with Zimbabwe, and particularly it's not just cricket. And one of the interesting things probably readers and listeners would be aware is the Zimbabwe sports minister is an Olympic medal winner, just like Indian sports minister is a medal winner. So there is a different kind of a connect. So that's very interesting. This is how things look differently, and training and sports is one area where we already have ties beyond cricket. But here you can look at the newer areas of exploration with each other, and I think that's significant because normally sports gets neglected in all kinds of engagements of diplomatic ties. But with Zimbabwe, it has to be there because it's a different, and they also have a British connect.
Yes, absolutely. The colonial connect is obviously there, and also another connect, Professor, is the fact that there are several Indians in Zimbabwe as well. And, how do you see the diaspora really engaging and improving ties between the two countries?
Well, diaspora has always been, has played a very important linking role between the two states. And I think this time also, the Vice President reached out to the diaspora, and I think the sustained interaction with the diaspora in the African continent has been something that India in the past has been very proud of, that what its diaspora is doing has achieved in many of the states in Africa. But I think engaging them more substantively in terms of delivering certain India's ability to deliver on the ground perhaps improves if you have a diaspora that is very keen on engaging with both sides. And also I think the one aspect of diaspora engagement has been how do you leverage diaspora back in India. So I think at both ends, I think if I read the Vice President's speech correctly, he mentioned this fact in his statements as to how the diaspora becomes an important part of India's interactions with not only Zimbabwe but also other states in the region. So I think that sustained interaction with the diaspora, which has been again this government's very important aspect of this government's foreign policy, has been engaging with the diaspora and making sure the diaspora contributes at both ends of the relationship, I think should pay India great dividends as India reaches out and makes sure that the commitment that it has made to these countries gets delivered on the ground. And I think the other element has been the private sector participation, for example, which again, if you see there in almost these three countries, all three countries, but also largely in Africa, Indian private sector has had a very important role to play. So how do you leverage Indian private sector's participation in maintaining India's own interests in the region? And I think that is something which we see a shift towards Indian government now taking a more active stand on this issue. How do you help the Indian private sector achieve some of the issues on which India really wants to make an impact on the ground? So I think on both these aspects, the more such visits there are, the more explicit enunciation of the role of diaspora and private sector there is made by Indian leaders. It will have an impact on Indian foreign policy as well as on the ability of these constituencies to deliver for India.
Right. Third leg of the visit, Ambassador, Malawi. What were the key takeaways really as far as Malawi is concerned for you?
Well, interestingly, one of the agreements that was signed, of course, we had a visit of the previous Vice President in 2010 there.
Yeah.
And they needed some assistance in disaster management. And that's where one area in which we have assisted them and we're ready to assist. And one of the agreements that I was quite interested was peaceful users of atomic energy. I mean, that's one of the MoUs that has been signed, which would be an interesting collaborative paradigm in Malawi. Which we'll see. And I think that this is one country, again, which has for years been neglected, but they are coming back into the main southern fora within the ambit of SADC or COMESA or whatever it is. So we are looking at that plus mining, of course, I mean, is everywhere in all these three countries. They are very rich in mineral sources, whether it is gold, whether it is diamonds. I mean, so in those areas, India is looking to have collaborations. We have also given them lines of credit for their essential use, as well as providing pharmaceuticals. So I think that this is where capacity building is. Of course, India is an ace provider in this, and we should be able to do it. But I would like to say one thing, and as far as Africa is concerned, and this is the feeling of the Africans. After the IAFS 2015, we had committed a lot, including 50,000 scholarships to the Africans. The key to all this, and to really, in my view, if we want to really overtake China in Africa, is to deliver on time. Our delivery mechanisms for various promises that we make are far too slow. And that is something that we have to do. We have to have a continuous monitoring. We have to come out clearly with our policies and where are we going to have the money and how it will be done. And it should be done as expeditiously as possible.
Signing MOUs is just one aspect of it, but actually implementing...
Frankly, the MOUs is a normal thing in which we create sound bites. But this is not something. What is our strategic objective in the country, or their strategic objective, we should align with ours.
Right.
So that it does not seen as some kind of an exploitation of one by the other. But today the Africans have been exposed to what is being given by other countries. And in fact, there is a big race. Japan is the biggest ODA giver to Africa. China is pumping in money everywhere. The Americans are looking at it. In fact, our India-Africa summit is also a bit of a clone of the others.
Right.
We were a bit late in doing that. So I feel that we should be able to come out and now that we have established a one-on-one relationship with the leaders, with them, democracy building, with institution building, with capacity building, and of course the mutually advantageous economic and strategic ties with those countries is extremely important for us.
Right.
Anti-piracy operations and maritime cooperation, that is also there with a lot of countries.
Sure.
And I think we have a lot to do, provided we are able to deliver in time.
Absolutely. Timely delivery is key, is what the ambassador is suggesting. KV Prasad, Malawi has also ratified the framework agreement of the International Solar Alliance. Now, the International Solar Alliance has been gaining a lot of traction. Even Botswana has said that it wants to be a part of the International Solar Alliance. Clearly, that is something that is going to work for us in the future as well.
Yes, certainly, because India is committed to cutting its carbon footprint, and we have set standards for ourselves. We are part of the COPU agreement, so we have to take. And so ISA is one very good mechanism which countries on either side closer to the equator and other places where you have almost 160 countries where sunshine is there for more than the specified 200 odd plus days. So that's the idea, is to take advantage. But the reason why I think issue is one of the things is technicality of the kind of solar photovoltaic cells that are available and the kind of capturing of this. That's something is a challenge and an expensive proposition. And I think here again the Chinese have taken a march always. I mean, this is a contest between the kind of technology that India has and the kind of technology the Chinese panels come in with. Anyway, those are secondary issue, but ISA is important. ISA is important because of this reason. And I would like to add one issue to Malawi in particular. I was just reading this morning that when the Vice President went there, one of the points he made of healthcare, the Jaipur foot. So I think Government of India has decided to do a lot in this area. And that's something unique because, of course, Jaipur foot is now known the world over. And I think some prosthetic limbs were fitted at the time when the Vice President was there. And I think there's a promise of 10,000 or some. So all these add to contribution, and then people realize that their lives have changed and transformed because of a small gesture by a country, or so the goodwill among people also adds to the strengthening of relationships.
Right. Professor, what was the takeaway really from the third leg of the Vice President's visit to Malawi, as far as you are concerned?
I think with Malawi, as I think was pointed out, we are seeing greater interactions over the last few years. And I think a large part of that is how perhaps India can engage with Malawi at various sectors, specific sectors, and how India can build capacity. So whether it's healthcare, agriculture, ICT, we are looking at specific projects where India can actually deliver on the ground.
Specialized training programs in defense forces in Malawi as well is something that's spoken
So I think defense training is again one part of it which has grown over the last few years. Defense engagement with Malawi. And I think, again, it shows at some level, I think we are differentiating ourselves from other countries where rather than top-down, a very bottom-up approach is being pursued, where perhaps African nations themselves tell us which areas they want us to contribute. And my sense is that that's a much more productive way of engaging Africa, because as I think Ambassador pointed out, there is almost a race for Africa going on. Everyone wants to be part of this race. But I think if you want to be productively engaging with Africa, at the end of the day, not having the same old discussions about colonialism or new colonialism, you have to make it a point to shape your engagement in a way that is about Africa and about Africans' role in the 21st century. So I think as Africa grows, and I think Africa is again today a continent which is growing economically, which is economically vibrant. It's no longer the past, continent in the past, which used to be down in the dumps, which was not growing economically. I think we are seeing great political stability, unprecedented compared to its past, economic development happening. And I think all that means that Africans are looking for partners. They are not looking for actors which can just go there or give money or come with a certain blueprint for the continent. I think they are now looking for partners, and India has made it a point now to deliver in certain sectors and specific projects, which I think if we can deliver on time, if we can deliver it on the ground, I think that would be a great contribution not only to Africa but also to India-Africa ties more broadly.
Absolutely. Closing comments now from all my guests, starting first with you, Ambassador. Why these three countries and why this particular region for this Africa leg of the visit?
Well, just to sum up one word, that later half of this century will be the African century. We have to be there. There is no option. The visits to the SADC countries, these countries have not been there. That's why the visits have taken place. But one interesting thing which I saw from the Vice President's tweets, which I would like to just read out for you, it was this soil of Africa which gave the nourishment and inspiration and made Mahatma Gandhi what he was. It was Africa that transformed his vision and gave greater clarity to his life's mission. Africa has always been close to Mahatma Gandhi. So I think in this 150th anniversary year of Mahatma Gandhi, all these events have also been conducted within that ambit. And I think we are on the right path.
Absolutely. 26 outgoing visits from India to Africa in the last 4 years, K.V. Prasad. That clearly shows how important Africa is to India.
Yes, the whole accent, as it said, one post 2015. That was one-off event, of course, a big one where almost 50 heads of state and government did come in. So that was very important. And from there on, how do you carry it forward? how much are we taking it? I mean, we around billions of dollars of lines of credit to the whole African continent, 50,000 scholarships, so on and so forth. And I think the Vice President did mention that we are very near completing that figure. So it's like we promise it and how much we can deliver it on the ground. Because as both my co-panelists mentioned, slower delivery, especially of infrastructure projects, has been the bane of Indian contribution wherever we've had. We have our own reasons, we have our own problems, but unlike, again, I would say, unlike China, we don't take our labor there to do it. We engage local and empower them and make them part of the process. So that's a different way of doing it. But Indian private sector is also very active. And I think I would just mention a very interesting anecdote I read, that the president's brother was a student of Delhi University.
Yeah.
And the president himself made a visit to India some 8 years ago. So there is this connect at the leadership level which makes a difference, because you're not trying to explain to them what you can do for them. They already know what you can do for. So that makes your job that much easier.
Absolutely. Professor, close the show for us with your concluding remarks on what does the future hold for India-Africa ties.
Well, I think the future is very bright if the present trends continue, and I think the present government has laid strong emphasis on Africa. Prime Minister himself has laid out a roadmap for what kind of policy India should be following about Africa, and I think sustained interaction at the very top level gives out a very strong message to Africans that Africa matters. It's not simply one other continent in the Indian scheme of things, usually at the very fag end of the agenda. It is a continent with which sustained engagement has happened, and I think now the time is to actually monitor and deliver on the ground. If we can do that, I think the future belongs to both India and Africa together.
All right. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective. For us, what's coming out of this debate is that Africa is looking for partners and not patrons, and India can be a strong partner going ahead. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.